Welcome to our audience on Globespan 24x7 as we bring to you our Monday night program. We want to thank our audience for tuning in with us tonight, and we have a jam-packed program as we await also the chairman of Region 10. We are told that he might have some problem with his internet up there. We want to thank Nohar Singh for making this platform available, and of course Devin Bisu, our technical specialist. This evening, as we celebrate independence here in the United States, we want to wish all Americans happy July 4th last night. For those of you who watched the Macy's parade, it was really great as usual. And I see for the first time, I believe, they used the Empire State Building as part of that celebration. It was beautiful for those who watched it. And of course, in Guyana today, we celebrate CARICOM Day. And today, I think the president met with CARICOM leaders through this medium, and they, of course, discussed affairs of government across the CARICOM region. As we went through that dreaded rainfall in Guyana, two of the regions that were really heavily hit were Region 6 and Region 10. And tonight, we are very honored and privileged to have with us the regional chairman of Region 6, Mr. David Armagan. Mr. Chairman, welcome to the program tonight. Mr. Armagan?
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Sigrim.
All right, and as we wait Mr. Devon Adams, the chairman for Region 10, we now want to welcome the coordinator for Region 6, Dr. Veersamy Ramaya. Dr. Ramaya, welcome. Your mute is on. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ramaya. And of course, with us is my co-host, Dr. Houston Rose. Dr. Rose, welcome.
Thank you, Charles, and welcome to all our viewers and listeners across the United States, the Caribbean, Guyana, and elsewhere to Globespan 24/7. This is Dialogue.
Thank you. And this evening, we'll have a great dialogue with Chairman of Region 10 as we await Region 6 as we are Region 10 Chairman. Mr. Armagan, we spoke of the flood. Firstly, has the rain stopped and has the flood receded in your region?
As it is now, the water has receded quite a lot, I would say, almost to a level which is manageable. And the rain has eased up somewhat, but we understand from the prediction that it is going to fall until the end of July, and then we may have a reprieve between July and October, and then it's going to start raining again. But as it is now, most of the areas have been drained.
Oh, that's good news, because I think, Mr. Armagan, of your region, I think Blackbush Polder, if I'm correct, was heavily hit. I think that area was mostly devastated, and the other part of the region, is that correct, or was the entire region affected?
The entire region was affected, but probably the worst hit was Blackbush Polder, as you rightly pointed out, because the first place that the Savannah water would normally come down from is through the Blackbush Polder area, because a lot of the Savannah water would drain through Blackbush Polder. But with the heavy rainfall, the water was coming from above. It was coming through breaches from the backland areas, and the Kanji Creek was also overtapping. So it was a massive amount of water from both bottom and the top.
Right, and I heard even the CEO for Gaisuko, Mr. Singh, he was saying the same thing with the Kanji being a catchment area for the Rosal estate. That was overflowing, so the water actually went back into the estate, and that was devastating as well. So I'm glad that the rain has stopped, and we hope that the sunshine will continue as we get out of this issue. And we want to delve into that tonight, and of course, what is going on in the region. Dr. Amaya, in your position as coordinator, how involved were you with the coordination of with the chairman of what's going on in the region with the flood?
I was very much, first of all, let me say good evening to all the viewers and to you and Dr. Rose. I was on the ground most of the time for the past few weeks, and I relate a lot of areas that was damaging to the residents with the chairman, and I pointed out some of the issues that where help was needed. And the chairman provided that type of help. If you recall, there was hundreds of millions of dollars were spent on pumps, especially to help the residents. And with this cash crop, we have a lot of damages with animals and rice, and the cash crop was underwater. At one stage, drinking water, potable water, was very difficult in some areas. And I took it upon myself, and I went in those areas. Many trucks of water I took to help the people, because I was expecting, Charles, a pandemic with another virus apart from the coronavirus, with this flooding that we had. A lot of rashes, people's feet and so forth, and the smelly water coming from the back dam and the estate, especially like Letterkenny, Anchorville, Albion. So with that now, I pinpointed and we work. There was no resting period per se. And with the cooperation of the regional aspect, the regional body, especially with the chairman and the intervention of the central government, we were able successfully at this point to help most of the residents, and the water receded quite a lot in Blackbush, as the chairman indicated. So actually we have everything under control at this stage, and I'm hoping, but you have to understand also, Charles, there was a lot of other concern. This COVID-19, which strikes very heavily in Berbice, I think we are second in the country with the amount of reported cases. So it's not only one aspect of the water, but we have to take other measures how to curtail the coronavirus in this region as well. It's a big issue.
And you know, Mr. Chairman, I think in situations like these, it brings out the best of our leaders. And I was in Berbice about a week or two ago, and the people were high in praise for your work, Mr. Chairman. I think you did very well with your team. But of course, there are issues there that is still harboring over quarantine, and we'll want to discuss some of those tonight. But before we go into that, Mr. Chairman, I know at one time you were chairman under the PPP slate, having won the region, and Dr. Amaya was the REO under the APNU AFC. How was the relationship then between you and the REO, having served in two different parties?
Yeah, it was quite challenging at first because, as you rightly pointed out, Dr. Amaya came from another party, and which at that time was the governing party, and I was basically at that time, as a member of the PPP Central Committee, I became the opposition candidate, basically. So I was an opposition chairman at that time. But after a while, I started to hit it out with Dr. Amaya. But we had our earlier differences because, you know, when they came in first, they started to be very critical of us and so. But then afterwards, we both recognized that for to push the region forward, and he himself is a person who was always interested in the development of people. And so being the person I am too, interested in the development of people, I think we had a common ground on which we were able to concretize our relationship.
And now you're on the same platform. Both of you are now part of the PPP. So with Dr. Amaya now being the coordinator and you're the chairman, I think you guys can work much more coordinated effort. Dr. Amaya, what do you have to say?
Well, I will tell you, Charles, I was new in the job 2016, and administratively, I had very little experience in the region. And one of the person I looked up to was the chairman. And I cannot ask better of any person who assisted me in all dimensions in Region 6. I was failed by the coalition, but he was there for me. But after things run a little sour with what the coalition had expected out of me, I had enough and I had to resign. But with the chairman, anyone can work with the chairman. I can tell you this. He is there for the people and the development of Berbice. And my heart and soul is here. And you know for a fact when you came down here in Berbice, I don't have enough rest where it comes to the issues of the people. So I am there with the people, and Dr. Rose can attest to that my work and my function is unstoppable. And again, I have to praise Dr. Bharat Jagdeo and our Excellency, Mr. Irfan Ali, to give me this privilege to work with Mr. Armogan, Zamal, Adiario, and I think Berbice will come up. Berbice will be there. Berbice will be an example for the entire country in a few months from now. But you have to remember, Charles, I don't want to get back to some of the historical facts, but you have, and you, Dr. Rose, knows this, that the 5 months of the election that was about to be cheated out from the PVP party was a big setback for last year, and then we were attacked by the COVID-19. So compounded all those things, what you see now in Berbice and in the entire country is a big difference from the 5 years that the coalition was there. So all in all, I think what myself and the regional body is doing, that we are point out all the difficulties, the weak points, and we are trying to correct those things from the health sector, agriculture, cash crop, you name it, and fishery. All we are involved now to make Berbice a good region for the whole country to follow.
Thank you. Anything you want to add, Mr. Armogan?
No, I fully agree with Dr. Amaya. We had faced quite a lot of challenges in this region under the last regime, the APNU AFC, because as you know, the estates, Rosal Estate was closed down, Skeldon Estate was closed down, and we are basically an agricultural region where we depend very heavily on rice and sugar. And when one sector of the economy was shut down, which is the sugar sector, we lost over 3,000 to 4,000 employees, and which virtually collapsed the economy of the region because spending power was not there. People were out of job. We started to experience internal migration, people moving from our region to other parts to look for jobs, family breaking up, lots of problems, lots of social problems too. But now we are coming out of those problems, and I think the region is right now on a good footing to begin to come back to where it used to be 7, 8 years ago.
Before Dr. Rose come on, Mr. Chairman, this is your second stint as chairman, 2 consecutive term?
No, actually, this is my 3rd term.
Oh, your 3rd term.
Yes, I came in when President Donald Ramotar came in. I came in as regional chairman in 2012, and I remember our term was cut short by virtue of no confidence, where they didn't get through the no confidence motion, but we had to give up a few years, 2 years more or less. And then, of course, then the APNU AFC came into the government. I continued through that period, which was a very difficult period for me. And then I'm happy now that we are back in government so that I can continue to do work for the people of this region.
Thank you. Dr. Rose, your mute is on.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. Mr. Morgan, not too many people know you. Dr. Ramai is well known of Berbice and almost throughout the country. Can you give us a background of yourself? You know, like where you came from, what you did during the previous times before you were appointed chairman of the group and so forth.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was born in Skeldon, in the quarantine area. I went to school in high school in Skeldon, and then immediately after high school, I went to the University of Guyana. I pursued a degree in economics, and so I have a degree in economics. And then after that, I taught for about 3 years, and then I joined Gaisuku Blairmont Estate as an assistant personnel manager. After 3 years, I was promoted to personnel manager, and I also did a course through Gaisuku with the Industrial Society in London, doing a postgraduate study in personnel management. So I am both an economist and a manager, a trained manager. So I've had quite a lot of experience being in Gaisuku over the years. And then in 1991, I left Gaisuku. I resigned from Gaisuku to pursue my own business. But my family already had a business going, so I came and joined that. But today I have my own business going. I'm involved in the sale of lumber. I have a lumber yard. I have trucks working. I have 8 trucks working around in the region, and I also have a place that I sell sand and stone and crushed iron and so. So I still continue to do my business even as I serve as regional chairman.
Thank you very much. I did not know that at all, but it was good for you to explain that to us. Now, Dr. Amayo, I want to ask you this question. You have been an ingrained person in Berbice. We had this flood, and you have been reporting many times on Facebook as to the solutions and so forth. Now, is Berbice prepared that if a flood should reoccur or rain should fall again, will we have the floods reoccur like this in the future?
There is a possibility, Dr. Rose, there is possibility that we can have a similar problem, but not to the extent or the degree, because the overflow water from the creek was one of the biggest problems. And I cannot deny what is happening. And the garbage dumping, some of the streets and the trenches were filled with garbage, and that makes it more difficult during the crisis that we face with this heavy rainfall. And some of the preparation was not done on time. One of the things that I advocated, that from the regional level, people, they will have to go there with the engineers. And this is a lesson for all Guyanese across this country who experience this bad flooding. Now we have to now take this as a strong reminder. And I think I mentioned something to you, Dr. Rose, that when the 5 months of the period that we went through with the coalition, I think that's an eye-opener for this government. And for what we experienced recently, it should also be an eye-opener for all the regions across this country. That we must prepare our sluices, we must prepare the outfalls, all the trenches, black bush. And again, there are some contractors that are not doing their jobs. They're spraying the grass instead of cleaning the grass out from the canals and the trenches. And that's what makes it very difficult. That is my grassroots experience going around. And most of these cases that I found, where some contractors were not executing their job properly, that was reported to the chairman. And we get most of it fixed. But I am looking forward that with this past experience that costing the government so much money, and the damages of the dams and the roads and everything else, which is unavoidable because of the flooding, we will have to now take all the precautionary measures to put things in place that as soon as we have rainfall or the canals overflowing, we must be prepared not to go through the same scenario as we did in the last few weeks. And this is important for us. The preparation has to be made now. It is very, very important for the preparation to be followed.
I must apologize to our listeners because Mr. Darren
Doc, your mute is on. Doc, your mute is on.
Yes, I said I must apologize to our listeners because Mr. Darren Abrams from Linden has not been responding to our calls at all, Mr. Darren Adams, rather. He's the chairman for Linden. We would like to know what's happening in Linden, what he's been doing, and so forth, but he's not responding. So it might be all focused on Borby since we can't get hold of him. Now, Mr. Armogan, to you. What have you learned from this flood compared to the last flood in 2005, 2006?
This was, I have never experienced anything of this nature before. I have lived through the 2017 flood and the other floods that came before this last flood did not affect Berbice in such a big way. This is a flood that really, really devastated us, more or less. So the lesson to be learned here is that we always have to get our drainage system cleaned completely. The problem here too, Doc, is that our system has been designed by the Dutch, and the sluices are only designed to take off about 1.5 to 2 inches of water in a 24-hour period. The thing is, if you have heavy rainfall of more than 2 inches then it will be very difficult to take off with the sluices. So we have to get additional pumps. So that's one of the first lessons that we have to learn from this particular flood, is that there is need for more pumps in the region. So even if the rain falls very heavily and very intensely, with sometimes 4 to 5 inches of rainfall in one day, then you can activate both the sluices and your pumps when the sluice cannot be operable. So this is one of the things we have to look at in the future. Secondly, there are some sluices that were operable many, many years ago that were closed for whatever reason I am not aware of. But some of these sluices now, we will have to go back and reopen these sluices because it is going to help in terms of drainage. More sluices, the better the drainage system. The other thing too, what we have to do is to open more drainage systems. Like for example, what the Minister of Agriculture recently announced, that we are looking to dig a canal from Johanna in Blackbush Polder, which is a very low area in the polder and which is always flooded once you have heavy rainfall. We will try, the minister has said that we will look at dredging a canal from Johanna straight out to the Bengal area where there is a sluice and a pump, so we can have more drainage out of Blackbush Polder. So all these things are being done, and also a long-term solution, of course, will have to be something like what has happened in Demerara with the Hope Canal. So, you know, with all these interventions, I am sure that even with the climate change that we are experiencing and the unpredictability of the weather pattern, we have to anticipate some of these things now and prepare for them in the future.
Mr. Armogan, in your response, you have used the word sluice or sluices about 11 times. Can you explain what a sluice is?
A sluice is a system that is used to drain water out of a particular area. It has doors in it, so when in the dry weather the sluice is not activated, then the sluice is closed. Whenever there is heavy rain, and it's located by the riverside, so the water now from the residential areas or the agricultural areas is coming through a canal, and then it leads to these sluices, which leads out into the ocean. So that's, and these sluices, as I said, have doors. Some have 2 doors, some have 3 doors, some have 4 doors, depending on the amount of water that it was designed to take out.
Mr. Armogan, a lot of people on the ground in the quarantine, and I spoke to quite a few of them, are saying that about 75% of the rainfall was natural disaster. 25% actually was man-made. because the region was not prepared or did not do preventive maintenance to clear the drains, the canals, the trenches, or get the sluices and the pumps in order. What have you to say about that?
I would not say, I would not put the percentage as high as 25. Maybe it would be lower than that. I must admit that there were, because of the fact that we never experienced such levels of water, maybe there was some level of complacency in terms of there are some drainage canals that were given to contractors and were not properly cleaned. So I will admit that. Since then, of course, their contracts were terminated. And then, of course, too, people accuse us of not excavating the sluices in time, so that when the rain came. But I must point out to you that because of the ways the sluices are situated so close to the riverside, to the sea, you have heavy siltation taking place. So if you excavate a canal, a sluice today, if you excavate by associated today, then in 1 week time, siltation builds up. And if the rain comes after that, then you have to excavate again. So it's a difficult decision to make, because you only start doing those things when the rains come. Then you start to do the excavation, because otherwise you will be having to do excavation every 3 weeks, and you don't have the finance to do that.
Dr. Amaya, what do you think? How much was the region prepared for this flood, and how much of the flooding was caused by natural disaster, which is rain, and by man-made disaster, which is blockages of canal, pumps not ready, and so forth?
I would say close to 50% when I drove around and I saw the adverse condition of the trenches and the canal. But let me add to what Mr. Armogan said about the sluices. You see, we have the sluices work with tides. So when the tide is coming in, the sluices got to be closed. And he's absolutely correct to say that we need pumps, that even when the tide is coming in, the pumps can still pump out the water. So that will be a very great advantage for this region. And the silting of the channels, because of the deposits of this, when the water comes in and there is no water to flush the channel back, we have a problem right there. There's sediments that deposit in the channels. So he's absolutely correct. If there is no rain, no water, within a month, you have to go back and dig those channels again. So that is one problem. What I have also can say in my days, that we have a problem here on the whole coastal area with fish ponds. The water used to go in the crabgrass, and when the water start to fall, the tides, that same very water used to come and help to remove some of the silts. But today that is being hampered. We don't have that kind of drainage anymore. So all those things will have to be taken into consideration. But one of the things that I advocated, and when I was the REO, I went into Blackbush. The spraying of the trenches and the drains, the canals, was one of the biggest problems. That when that stuff underneath, they only spray the grass on top. And this is where I talk about supervision. Supervision has to be of primary importance in this region. We cannot allow contractors to be paid to clean the canals, clean the drains, and they are not functional. They are not doing their jobs. Everybody has a way how to make money. And this is my passion, and I am exposing, and I think the chairman is working very closely with me with my recommendations, and I am going all out to different areas. So some of the neglected areas now, with this flooding, we have to take all the necessary precaution that we do not go through this costly experience.
Dr. Amaya, I was informed or told a lot of rice farmers have lost crops. And a lot of cash crop farmers have lost their cash crops as well. Do you think they should be compensated? And what measurement or yardstick would you use to compensate these people if they should be compensated?
Well, I think so. If I don't know the affordability of the government because of the cost of the hampers, the government has sent a lot of hampers in this region to be distributed to families. Yes, I think they should. The livestock, especially, I went in Blackbush, Dr. Rose, and I saw goats and sheep. They were floating in the water. There is no doubt. The people lost tremendously, especially cash crop. I do not know how much rice was damaged because when the rain came down, at that period of time, at that junction, a lot of people just reap their paddy out from the field, and a few people get caught in the field. So I don't know how many people tilt the soil and throw back paddy, but I saw some rice was growing in Blackbush. I went there several times. So with that kind of loss, it is very meaningful to a lot of rice farmers. But here again, the region has to make the assessment, and the central government has to decide how to compensate these people. And I am very objective in this respect because I know some people will claim even the things that they do not last. And I know the chairman will agree with me. And we have to be extremely careful as to the assessment of the damages before we compensate these people. We cannot ask the government for money and compensate the wrong person. Some of them will lose nothing, but they will still make claims of losing things, and this is something very costly. And I feel sorry right now because our budget that came out for infrastructure development, all that resources now have to go with the flood. And I think the chairman will agree with me with that.
Mr. Armogan, one final question before my colleague Charles comes in.
Doctor, mute is on.
Yeah, I'm not hearing you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Dr. Rabbi mentioned hampers, but it has been said in Berbice that the hampers were not shared evenly from one area to the next or from one village to the next. In other words, blacks have complained that their villages have been bypassed. If this is true, what would you do to correct this miscarriage of justice or fairness?
Yeah, as far as I know, over 15,000 hampers were distributed in the region, together with about 15,000 packages of cleaning materials. Now, we had to look at the more critical areas first in terms of distribution of hampers. And so areas were selected based on the level of flooding and the needs of the people within those areas. And so eventually the entire region will benefit from hampers. So whether there was a problem in terms of which area would have been selected first or which area would have been selected second, it's a matter of conjecture and opinion. But what we are prepared to do is to give to every single person within the region who have been affected by the flood conditions. But I know the impatience of people. Everybody wants the hamper at the same time, and as you know, that's not possible.
So you're saying to think it was distributed evenly across every district or every village?
Yes, I think it will happen.
Charles, over to you.
Gentlemen, Dr. Amaya raised a good point here, but when we come, I want to talk a little about the contracts, Mr. Chairman, and also some of the claims that farmers is likely to make when we come back. So we'll take a short break now, and then we'll come back very soon. So just stay right there, audience. We'll be back shortly.
AllFromOneSupplier.com has all your grocery needs, plus all of your West Indian items. Purchase all your groceries and all your West Indian items from one place and get free delivery to your homes and free shipping. AllFromOneSupplier.com has free deliveries locally in New York and free shipping to all U.S. states. Our shoppers choose the best items, packaged nicely, and delivered to your home. We have all your grocery needs and all your West Indian items, a one-stop shop. So place all your orders on allfromonesupplier.com or call 718-551-3292. That's online at allfromonesupplier.com or call 718-551-3292. Get all your groceries and all your West Indian items from allfromonesupplier.com with free deliveries and free shipping to all U.S. states. Travelspan is pleased to announce Curry Duck Curry Punta Cana 2021. Yep, it's Travelspan Curry Duck Curry with an inclusive vacation, 2-in-1 on August 12th to August 16th. Special performances by Terry Godraj, Sexy Marissa, the Tassamen, and the DJs are all going to Punta Cana on August 12th to August 16th. It's fun, games, party, and curry duck curry at VIK All-Inclusive Resort. All you can eat and all you can drink. Travelspan has flights from JFK, Newark, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, and Houston directly to Punta Cana. It's Travelspan Curry Duck Curry and an all-inclusive vacation. It's 2-in-1 on August 12th to August 16th in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. All-inclusive packages include air, hotel, transfers, all meals and drinks from $9.99 persons. Travelspan Curry Duck Curry is sponsored by allfromonesupplier.com. Dave West Indian. Call Travelspan at 212-243-0865. That's Travelspan at 212-243-0865 or book on travelspan.com. Folks, the Nest Restaurant is the place to dine for Guyanese and Caribbean dishes. It is the best restaurant in Queens. The staff is courteous, and Dave, the owner, is always there to welcome you. So for a memorable dining experience, visit the Nest Restaurant located at 12717 101 Avenue, South Richmond Hill. Go and make a reservation today or takeout. Call 718-847-4035. For all your plumbing, heating, and cooling needs, call Zim Mechanical Inc. at 347-456-8885. Zim Mechanical Inc. installs boilers, hot water heaters, and cooling systems. Located at 9732 Waltham Street, Jamaica, Queens, Zim Mechanical Inc. also repairs and troubleshoots your gas, heating, and cooling systems. For quotes on prices and repairs, call 347-456-8885.
Back to our audience, thank you for staying on with us as we have the regional chairman for region number 6, Mr. David Armagan, the coordinator for region 6, Dr. Veersamy Ramay, and of course, Dr. Rose. Mr. Chairman, we touched a little on the contract before we went off the air, and there are reports that there's a lot of emergency contract giving out in region 6. If that is true, that gives a lot of room for fraud. How often, in your view, are emergency contracts awarded for work to be done in Region 6?
This is not normally done, because let me explain to you how the system works. We are given a budget with specific programs, and so each program knows exactly what are the capital works to be undertaken, the sums of money that is given. It's being published, the work is being published, the people tender for the works, and then the tender board award these works, which are regular works that comes under the budget. So that cannot be considered as emergency.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
The only time emergency work will arise is in a period, like what happened recently, when there is an unexpected event that takes place. For example, if people lose their crop because of a particular blowing, then that's not part of the budgetary system. So what you do there, you will have to hire a machine as a matter of emergency to get our work done. But that's not something that is done regularly. But in this particular case that you were speaking about, where this event that took place recently with the flood, there had to be people who were taking on on an emergency basis. Otherwise, we would be still living in the water today. So I don't really, I hear this too, that people say that, were created so that emergency situations are created so that people can not, as far as I know, I am not aware of situations like that. What I do know, there are emergency situations and people are called in to do the work. And whether there's fraud involved or not, I really can't say that.
I got you. But in those emergency contracts, are they sole source or are they also trying to get a couple tenders in so they can evaluate who will give the best buck for the dollar? Is it sole source? Those emergency contracts.
If you have time, you probably give it a three persons, a selective tendering you call it. If you don't have time and the situation so warrant, like for example, you have a truce that gives way. I mean, you can't go to tender and you can't be looking, you look like the person work immediately. And that's what people refer to as emergency work. But that has to be done. I mean, there's no way that you can come out of that.
Yeah, but Mr. Chairman, I think also if the engineers do their work properly, they should know exactly what needs to be done so to prevent these things from happening. But that's a different discussion altogether. The Parliament approved $10 billion to support those affected by the flood. Do you have any inclination of the amount that would be allocated to Region 6 of that $10 billion?
No, that money has not been out as yet. We are still in the days. We are doing assessment. The Ministry of Agriculture through the GLDA is looking at animals that were lost. The crops division of the ministry is looking at crops that were lost. The GRDB, which is the Rice Development Board, they are looking at rice that has been lost and poultry that has been lost. There's another section in the ministry that deals with that. And of course, home appliances and other things that were lost. The region is also dealing with the things that were lost in the residential areas. So right now the assessment is being done. The numbers are being put together. And so tomorrow is the deadline for the submission of these numbers to the ministry.
Okay. Is rice farming?
After that, we will know. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Is rice farming the largest crop in Region 6?
Yes, it is, because we have over 62,000 acres of rice land under cultivation.
Okay. But Mr. Chairman, there are reports that many farmers reap their paddy before the flood. If this is true, they would not have suffered any loss from the last crop. Yet I'm told that they would claim for damages. Is that what you're hearing as well? And if so, what system will be put in place to prevent fraudulent claims?
Let me answer that. Indeed, it is true that most of the rice crop, especially
you break up the chairman. I hear you, Chairman. Devin?
That in the event that they are not able to go back for the second crop in this year, that is where I think they are claiming for compensation. Because in a lot of cases, those people who have not, who are not in a position to go back now for the second crop, then they would only do one crop for the year, and as a result, cannot be able to meet their financial obligations to the banks and to the other agencies from which they get fertilizers and pesticides and so. So I think this is a concern. The concern is not so much that they would have lost a crop, but the concern is where will they get the money now in the event that they cannot go back to this crop. I mean, there must be some assistance at the level of the government. So I think that is more or less the concern rather than losing the crop.
Okay, Dr. Amaya, in your visit around the region, how much fraud do you think might come up from this, the claims made by farmers, if there's any fraud? What percentage of the payout might be fraudulent, you think?
I'm looking at about 30%, the way I look at everything else. And I mentioned that on my weekly television programs. One of the things that I have done, Charles, like people with livestock, I asked them, did you take out any pictures? So they got the cell phone to document some of your losses. And they cannot come up. They only say that, oh, the government gonna pay, we lost 20 heads of chicken, some ducks, and some sheep. And when I get to some of these people, they do not own those stocks. What the chairman said about people not planting a second crop, I don't know if that is a feasible way of the government to help those people at this crisis, because they have loans and all these things to pay. But what about the people who already tilted their land and they lost the paddy, they lost the seedlings and whatever they did on the land before the flood? How we will compensate them? I don't know if it's going to be a justifiable way of assessing the situation and to give them some kind of financial help. I am not knocking out anybody. But again, when we are in business, sometimes we have to expect some of these things to happen. So if you do and then the question here, that the party that they have not lost, and the chairman made a point, they have loans to pay. Now, not everybody got loans to pay, but the question is, how much are they going to clear? And the things that I am hearing, Sovereign, that there is some allegiance between some of the people who are doing the assessment and the rice farmers. And I have to be very candid about this here, that there is some favoritism that will be applied, and I think that will become very unfair for those people with the greater loss. So again, if it's going to be equitable in that sense, I don't know. The chairman is in a better position to make that evaluation. And I cannot make the assessment for the region or the people who are coming to make the assessment, to take that forward to the central government for them to be rewarded in some way or the other. But this is my take on this whole issue, that I don't believe consciously that the truthfulness of people who got losses will get out there to the chairman or anybody. They will claim more than they lost. And that is my take right on the situation, because I have spoken to a lot of people and they are not honest.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think you can speak like Dr. Amaya, because he's not a chairman, you are the chairman. But what he said there, I subscribe to that. What system or mechanism is put in place to prevent those things from, happen? I mean, we can't avoid all of it, because, hey, as doctor, we are all humans. A friend will help a friend and so on. But what system are we putting in place to avoid those things taking over? The people who are supposed to get help, they're not getting as much as they should, and those who should not get help, they're getting paid like free money. I mean, is there any system we're putting in place?
Yeah. We have rangers in most of these rice cultivation and cash crop cultivation areas. We have rangers, so they would be in a position to know who had what on the ground at the time when the floods came, because they will normally go around in these, especially in the Blackbush Pool. We have 4 rangers, one each that is responsible for each one of the areas. So they would have some idea as to what people would have had on the ground. Secondly, when we have this information, we are cross-checking it with the NDCs as well to make sure that there is some check and balance in the system, because I know in lots of cases there will be some amount of skullduggery, but we will have to try and minimize that by putting in place these measures where we'll sit with the rangers and look at the numbers coming out, and then we will sit with the NDC too to make sure that there is some level of understanding that will, or commonality, that in these people would have lost so much. Because in any society, and in especially in a situation that we have recently experienced, there will be some amount of that that Ramaya spoke about. But we are trying as much as possible to minimize that.
Yeah, in any system, whether here in the United States or Europe or anywhere in the Caribbean, Asia, Africa, that will still happen. So if you can minimize it, that'd be a great thing. Mr. Chairman, in your professional judgment, based on your team around you, what is, in an estimate, what's the value of the loss that Region 6 suffered in this flood, in your view?
I average it would be in a few billions, maybe $2-3 billion in terms of losses. People really lost a lot. The entire cash crop was wiped off. In fact, I was in Blackbush Wednesday, and one of the farmers was telling me it is now cheaper to buy a ram sheep than to buy a bag of melange, because a bag of melange now is more expensive than a ram sheep. and because the flood conditions too, these ram sheep might be selling somewhat cheaper. So it's not easy to quantify at the moment, but I'm sure it's going to run into thousands of millions of dollars.
And I'm sure that also affects the local economy because the money is not circulating at this point in time. So it's affecting shops and all the business areas as well.
Yeah, and besides that too, it will affect the cost of living, because the cash, if the cash crop people are out of business right now, then what you find is that vegetables and everything else in the marketplace would go up tremendously. So it will have an effect too on the cost of living.
Dr. Ramaya mentioned it. What about waterborne disease? Is there any indication of any waterborne disease in the region?
We have had a few cases of dengue, about 10 to 15 cases of dengue in the region. But we had that about 2-3 weeks ago. But I haven't seen any numbers of that increasing at the moment. So that's probably would be under control. What we see mostly is like foot disease, like in between your toes and stuff like that. You will find that they have some level of infection there. But we have the health team that is going around to these villages, to these areas that were flooded. There is a schedule of these visits to these very areas, so the people know that they are coming, and so they are going around with these medications to deal with some of these issues that need medical attention.
Okay. Dr. Rose?
This question is for both of you, Mr. Chairman and Dr. Amaya. You all are fully aware that the hospitals in Berbice are in a horrible state. It has been the worst it has ever been in many, many years. And let me give you some examples. For example, at most of the hospitals, the nurses do not have gloves to wear. At Skellen Hospital in particular, the compressor unit to keep the morgue going, to keep dead frozen, are out of service for the past week and a half to 2 weeks. The X-ray machine at Skellen, when it's working, the technician is absent. So the people have to wait again until the technician comes there. Port Brent is about the same thing. New Amsterdam, there's a dialysis machine there, but it's not working. And people have to spend thousands of dollars to go and get dialysis elsewhere at private clinics and so forth. Now, medication, as you're all aware, the hospitals do not have the simplest medication to give people for like hypertension tablets. They don't have. And you all are fully aware of this. Mr. R. Morgan, what are you going to do to correct this situation in the hospitals? Needless to say, the clinics throughout the country is the same thing. There are no medication in those clinics. So why have these places and the people are not getting help?
But let me go back a little bit. When we took over recently in August of last year, we got to recognize that the entire health system was flattened. And so it is taking some time to build back right now, because for one, the drugs bond, as you probably would know, was empty, and whatever was there would have been discarded stuff. So there was no drug. We began in this term in August with no drugs practically in the drugs bond. So that's one of the issues. That was the first thing. So there was indeed a shortage of drug. Now that of medicines. Now that is being improved because now the government has spent a few $1 billion buying drugs and supplies. So a lot of these hospitals now are getting regular supply of drugs. So of recent, I haven't heard too many complaints of basic things like blood pressure medicines, like diabetic medicines, heart medicines, and so I haven't heard too many complaints of that recently, because as the medicines now started to come in, because of course we had to take some time getting the medicines imported from overseas and so. So the MMU, which is the main drug bond in this country, is beginning now to function 100%, or not 100%, but it's much better than what it was when we took it over recently. Now, there are some issues which I agree with you, but these are issues that has to be remedied. Of course, the compressor that you talked about at Skeldon, it is true that the compressor went down for a couple of days, but then, you know, to get a compressor in this country, it takes about 2 weeks to get in a compressor here. So it means that there will be a lead time once you get a breakdown. What has happened recently, we took one that was at Blackbush Polar when they had the first issue with the compressor at Skeldon. Now that compressor was installed. Unfortunately, that compressor maybe was an old one, and so that compressor gave way a few days ago that you are talking about. So that would be that we are now trying to get a new one to fix. The other thing too, that the
X-ray machines.
dialysis machine. The dialysis machine was an arrangement between the last government and Dr. Dubé from Canada. Now, the patients, we had about 15 patients in Berbice, used to utilize that particular service free of cost. Now, what has happened just before we took over, there was some difficulties with payments between the last government and Dr. Dubé. And so when we came into government, we recognized that there was some level of discrepancy with regards to number of patients being treated, the cost per patient. And so since that time, what has happened is that the Ministry of Health is now looking for another person or another agency to do the dialysis. So as I speak, my understanding is that the ministry is very soon to conclude an agreement with some person from overseas to run that dialysis machine again. So hopefully within another few weeks or so, we should have that going. So I know that's one of the problems, a big issue. It has been raised right across the region because a lot of poor people cannot really afford the cost of dialysis to go privately, very expensive. And some of the other issues too that you talked about are issues of an administrative nature, which we are working at the moment to resolve. As I speak to Dr. Bob Ramnath, who is a surgeon, is now being sent to New Amsterdam Hospital as the CEO. So we have a young person there now, a doctor who's had quite a number of years of experience. He is coming to run the New Amsterdam Hospital, and he will have oversight of the Skeldon Hospital as well. And so we are working now to ensure that all the health centers, in fact, the vice president himself has taken on this mantle, this issue that we have at the present to ensure that the health system is properly running and functioning. Because so tomorrow too, we have to visit all the health centers We had to visit every single hospital and every single health facility, and we will be submitting to him tomorrow the situational analysis of all these various departments of the health system we made on how best to spend money to get all these facilities back to tip-top condition, and so that our people can begin to benefit in a way that they deserve, and they don't have to spend money in the private facilities.
Dr. Amaya, it is my understanding that you have been designated to visit all the hospitals, Skeldon, Blackbush, Boulder, Portmont, New Amsterdam, and the clinics to determine or to find out what are the problems there, missing medications, machines not working, and so forth. What are your findings?
Thank you, Dr. Rose. And to add to what the chairman has said, there is administrative problems within the health center, the health department. You were with me when I received the call from the concerning patient up in Scotland. When she went there, the X-ray machine was working, but there was no technician at the hospital. And I give you the privilege that you have to talk to somebody, and you did not receive a definitive answer as to why the technician was not there. And at one stage, when the machine is out of order, the technician is present. Now, these are complaints that I'm receiving. In regard to the mortuary, someone, the people are there to call me, and again, you were present there when I received the call, that to bring a death from Crabwood Creek all the way to Amshire or New Amsterdam is very expensive for the family. And if a simple thing as a mortuary is not working, we have a problem. And I am so emotional when people call, especially people who are poor, and the affordability is not there for them to bury the dead. Pertaining to the dialysis machine, again, you can bear witness to that when this person called me from 19 Village, that she has to do domestic work. The husband has to take dialysis twice a week at Dewey's medical clinic in East Coast, and she cannot afford it. Drugs, and I don't know, because I am more vulnerable in this way to the public. I give them my phone number, my home, my cell phone. They call me. Sometimes they do not get through with the chairman because he's busy. So they want somebody to talk to. And the question here, simple painkillers. I am not going to defend anyone, but simple painkillers are not there for people. They are given prescription. 2 weeks ago, right by Portmont Hospital, this bus was hit by the side and he went underneath a truck. Now, this lady's foot was broken, and the driver. They went to the hospital at New Amsterdam. Nothing was done for them. The Monday, they went and they spent thousands of dollars to get their feet plaster Paris. Now, I feel, and I sent a letter to Frank, the minister, in regards to what is happening, because I am on the ground and I am aware of what is happening. I think these are simple things that can be done. It is affecting the government image of what they are doing. And my concern is the government is doing enough, but administratively, these people are not overlooked. Our pharmacies, they are not well, if they are well stocked, but what is happening during the weekends when you go there with pains? You got to go back Monday morning. Now, a lot of poor people having prescription to be filled at the private drugstores, and that is not right. Pills like diabetes tablets, high blood pressure tablets, whatever cholesterol medications, they can't afford to go from, say, from Liverpool to New Amsterdam, join a clinic, and they have to pay $300 to go and $300 to come back. It is difficult. This is a difficult time that we are going through, and that 5 years, that I was here with the coalition, I will tell you, the healthcare system was in a miserable state, as the chairman said. Millions of dollars of drugs were expired in the bond and was never distributed to the people in the country. Now, this is something I would really like to see. That is, we must have the people on top. They have to do follow-up, Dr. Rose. They have to do follow-up every single day. Do you have this medication? We have it in the bond. The X-ray machine is working. How is it that I know that I have to relate to the Minister of Health and the people from the regional level do not know? How is it that I know people don't have medication? I am not going to make up stories. I am not good at making up stories, but I am good to relate what is told to me and what is happening on the ground, because I am on the ground. I want to help people, and I want to see this government do things that everybody was satisfied. They are making all conservative efforts, and I know we will get there, but we will have to take responsibilities in our jobs. Our position demand that from us, because they are highly paid people. The salaries tells them one thing, that you have to be functional in that capacity.
Dr. Amaya, you said the government has been doing everything, but administratively, something is failing. That, to me, is an oxymoron. These hospital clinics are not run by private enterprises. They're run by the government. So how can the government do everything, and yet the system is failing?
Well, again, I will say we have a regional body, and in this regional body, they have a health sector as well, work committees, health committees, and so forth. So these are the people who have to shoulder. I am so sorry that I was not involved before to be a part of the health committee or whatever it may be, the social protection committees or whatever. But the question here, I cannot relate to Mr. Jack Dewan, the president, to ask the regional people or the health person who is in charge of health what is going on. They have to report if there are shortages. And this is the function of particularly the hospital. The function is not carried out 100%. And I know the capacity is there for that to be done. And unless they do that, people will become very dissatisfied, not only with politically, but dissatisfied in the confidence in the government. And I don't want to see that happen, because people's health comes first. And we have to protect those people at all times. Things are very difficult in these days. And especially with this flood, who's going to afford? One of the things that the chairman, he did not mention, why is it that Berbice experienced a more difficult time with this flood? Most people in Region 4, they have a government salary, they got a government job. But here people are independent with the rice field, the cash crop, the poultry, cattle rearing, fishing, and all was actually destroyed by the flood. So we find it more difficult, especially agriculture areas. We find it more difficult than any part of the country where people are employed by the government, they have a monthly salary, so they can survive, Dr. Rose.
I just want to focus back on the health system for these. What you're telling the listeners is that there's a regional health officer, and that person is not doing a good job. But I'll leave it at that. Let me just jump to another topic here before I switch over to my colleague. The Quarantine Highway, I must say, is in fairly good shape. But there are roads that lead into villages. Those roads are in horrible shape. Cars and buses cannot enter. The whole potholes are so deep that it will damage your vehicle. Blackbush Boulder Road.
Doc, your mute is on. Doc.
Yes. Go ahead.
Go on, Doc. Go on.
I was saying the Quarantine Highway is in fairly good shape, but the roads leading into villages are in horrible shape. Potholes are everywhere. You can take the Flywish Road and all the roads going up the quarantine. Blackbush Boulder roads, they are in horrible shape. New Amsterdam, there are some major potholes in some of the main thoroughfares. What is the regional council doing to fix these potholes, these roads?
Dr. Rose, I will tell you when the government assumed government last year from August the 2nd, they had a short budget. So that was money was not there for public infrastructure. Then we got the new budget, and in 3 months before we could execute the budget and to get certain infrastructure work done, the rain came down, the flood. So yes, you're right. I went across, I destroyed my bumpers and my shock from my car. However, there is allocation and there is money coming, and the subvention that was recently given, some work will be done. But I want to be very candid here. Some of these streets are damaged as a result of the citizens. They're taking big trucks where 2 tons supposed to go in that street and they carry 10 tons. I can't blame the regional department or the chairman for that. I will tell you what happened in Blackbush. The streets are so small, but yet these people are driving the combines, the tractors with cage wheel, and the whole road was damaged. There are many potholes on the quarantine road. That was newly done before the flood, but the cage wheel and the combine wheel take the fresh filling of those holes. The chairman can vouch to that. So again, we are not taking responsibilities. Not the government cannot do everything for us. The people, they are indiscreet where it comes to the communities. Today I talked to the chairman this morning. You were right there. And the question was, that this guy go and drive the tractor on a freshly dam that was done by the region, which costs money. Now, how can we prosecute those people? We can't depending on the government all the time to do things for us if we are not going to take some precautions. And that is exactly what happened in Blackbush. They destroy all the streets, all the dams. Now, who is going to fix it? This is one of my big questions. If you cannot help to preserve your communities, then something is wrong with us. So the undertaking here is not only the region or the NDCs, but the undertaking also is with the people of that community.
Mr. Morgan, Dr. Amaya is putting the blame for the damage of some roads on the residents using heavy-duty vehicles, combines, tractors with cage wheels, which are steel wheels expanded outside of the regular wheels and so forth. Where are your enforcement officers?
I didn't quite get a question, Doc. You're breaking up.
Okay. So, Dr. Myers pointed out that he has put some of the blame for these roads that are damaged on the people, the residents, by using heavy vehicles to traverse certain roads that are not built for those loads, using rice combines that has metal wheels that are digging up the roads, tractors with cage wheels, which are extended metal wheels outside of the tractors, and so forth. This means that these are people who are damaging the roads. My question to you is this, Mr. R. Morgan, as chairman, where are your enforcement officers?
This question has been around for quite some time in terms of destruction of the roads, and with heavy machinery and with overweight trucks and these kinds of things. But there are laws that are in place which the police enforce to ensure that these things do not happen. But then we also have to recognize it's a dilemma sometimes, because you have to recognize that we are dealing in a region that is heavily an agricultural region. And then on the one hand, we have all these machines that sometimes do not comply with the police regulations. So in as much as the police try to do their best, there are instances too where there are people who they're like the rice bodies and so like the RPA and some of the other representative farmers association and so that will always come on board to try to advance the case for the farmers. Well, where is it that they will put their tractors? Where is it that they will take their combines? You have all these things. So we sometimes find ourselves in a dilemma. And maybe the time has come where we have to enforce the law. Because once we keep spending money on these roads, and Dr. Roy is right, and people do not take responsibility for ensuring that they work in accordance with the laws, then we will continue to get further destruction of these roads. So at some point in time, hard decisions will have to be made.
Dr. Mr. Armagan, I'm sorry that the Region 10 chairman is not here with us, but I don't know if you know, but before Denver was nationalized, the heavy vehicle from Denver could not go into the roads in Linden. As soon as Denver was nationalized, they said, oh, it's V1 now, so we can do what we want. And all the roads in Linden was broken up. And what Dr. Romay is saying is so true. The same people, they come to the United States and different parts of the world and they observe the rules there. Back home, they observe absolutely nothing. And unless we put stringent measures in place, I know we talk about this many times, and they're saying, oh, it's support of the party, what are you gonna do? You know, if you continue that way, nothing will get done. I just want to say, driving up the Quarantine Highway, Mr. Chairman, I am very impressed with your lighting. I think your lighting on the highway is far better than those in Georgetown. So I was driving up to Crabwood Creek the other night, and I was so impressed that the lights are so beautifully on the highway. But Mr. Chairman, I got a text from one of our viewers, and he said, how many doctors are there in New Amsterdam, and do we have an adequate supply of doctors to take care of the needs of the people there in Region 6?
The answer to that would be yes, Mr. Subram, because you recall I said I was from Skellen. At one time, I know Skellen Hospital used to be run by one doctor, but that doctor used to sit there from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. What has happened, today we have 3 doctors at Skellen Hospital, which is an outlying hospital, outlying area. The thing is, what we find, and it's something that we will have to look at, is that quite a lot of these doctors are spending a substantial part of their time too in private practice, and they might not be, fully spending their hours looking at patients in the hospital. That's one of the things that we are looking at very seriously right now, because even though we have enough doctors, maybe they are not spending enough time in the hospitals and in the health centers. They're probably, lots of them are doing private practice.
And we had the same problem all across Guyana as well, Mr. Chairman. So it's not Barbados alone.
If you can give me one word in regards to that, and let the public knows and let the government knows that some of these doctors working in our hospitals, they are being paid. And many times, and as my brother said, the chairman, they have their private practice home. And you know what they are doing? They are sending the patient from the hospital to come and see them at home. And this is unfair to our people. The government is trying to help every person with healthcare through the medium of the medical facilities in Berbice. But some of these doctors are working privately, and I tell you, come home and I will treat you home. And I don't know if they're taking the drugs from the hospital too and take it to the homes to treat patients. All these things needs to be looked at and to make firm decision to see if a doctor is working home, how productive this doctor is within the administrative level. And this is one of my undertaking with what is going on. I don't care, to be very honest, I don't care who is annoyed, but this is the truth. And people come back to me and they complained and they cried, and I can't stem that.
And Dr. Amaya, it's not only in Berbice. Before I left Guyana, I was working at the Georgetown Hospital, and the same thing happens there too. The doctors would refer their patient to Woodlands or to other private hospitals and do the same operation that they could have done at Georgetown Hospital. That's a problem that we have, and we don't seem to be able to correct it. But Mr. Chairman, someone asked me that the Miami Curie Hospital is without a generator for more than 8 years. Well, you've been chairman for all those 8 years. Will you be getting one anytime soon?
There is one in the system now to be bought. We have one in the capital program for my Victoria Hospital.
Okay, is there a drug bond in Berbice to take care of the distribution of drugs? I know there's one in Georgetown, the main one. Is there one in Berbice?
There is a main one at New Amsterdam as well.
And that service the region?
Right, whenever we get supplies from the MMU, it comes down in bulk. And so from there, we distribute to the health centers and to the outlying hospitals in the region.
I know. Mr. Chairman, you know, one of our colleagues, he has a post on social media, and he's putting photograph a lot of those derelict vehicles along the quarantine road. I've seen someone driving up down the quarantine. Are we going to work to ensure that those vehicles are removed? Because they are a traffic hazard. What are your plans to remove those vehicles?
Yes, we have that in plan. We are working very closely with the Ministry of Public Works, because the roadway from the parapet going down comes under the NDC, and the main thoroughfare with some of these machines have encroached on comes under the police ministry of I think they have started at Timeri and so they're coming down to Berbice too to ensure that we clear all these derelict vehicles off the road, because even when we give notice to people, they're not acting on it.
Yeah, I know the last PP government, Mr. Chairman, they built a lot of drying floors for paddy, but those drying floors are now occupied by cows and sheep and goat and so on, and the farmers continue to use the road to dry their paddy. What are we doing about that as well? That's also a traffic hazard. Indeed,
and that's one of the things too. Right now, we are trying to build about 4 more drying floors within the region to ensure, and then we also have the seed paddy plant. You see what the farmers are drying there are seed paddy basically. It's not like they are drying their entire crop on the road. So because the seed paddy facility that we have at Blackbush Polder only has a certain level of capacity, which is not adequate to deal with the amount of seed paddy that will be necessary for the farmers, they have to either dry their paddy on the road or in drying floors. But the drying floor that we have one at by Rambridge Place at 43, but people are not utilizing it. And so people prefer to spend a couple of days on the road and dry their seed paddy. But that practice is going to be eased because we are now expanding the seed facility at Blackbush Polder to bring it up to scratch to serve the capacity of the demands of the farmers in terms of seed paddy for the crop. So hopefully that is going to solve itself.
Mr. Chairman, I know we talk about all the problems on your shoulder, but we have not asked you of what your vision is for the development of Region 6 for this year. But before I ask you that question, they also receive a report or many reports of some of the people who are the buyers in the region. They go to these people and they ask them to inflate their invoice. If the invoice is not inflated, and that's Dr. Ramaya, I think some evidence of that too, they do not get any further contract. I think Nanpasad is one of those companies that normally would supply the region with stuff, but because these guys are so honorable, they're not prepared to inflate their invoices. They have not been given any business with the region. If that is so, what can you put in place to prevent that from happening?
I'm not aware of that, because what has been happening, how the system works, is that at the beginning of the year, we invite tenders or interested people who wants to work with the region. So you have a list, for example, you have persons who are interested in doing roads. You have 50 people interested in doing roads. You have another 20 interested in supplying machinery spares. You have another 20 people. So you have a list, different list of people who have indicated interest in supplying various things, and we work with those lists. So when there is, let's say, for example, we need a certain set of spares, we send out tenders to all those people who have indicated an interest in supplying spares. And so then we receive the tender, and based on that, the tender board makes a decision. But I cannot vouch 100% that there might not be skullduggery in some cases where people select people based on maybe their association with certain people. I really can't vouch for that. But what I could say is that the way the system is designed, it is designed to give everyone an opportunity to tender for any product that we want to buy at a regional level.
Mr. Chairman, I know time is running out so fast. We have so many questions more for you. But I know Dr. Amaya, Dr. Rose, I'm sure want to contribute some more before we close tonight. Dr. Amaya?
Yes, I want to thank you and Dr. Rose for this opportunity, not only to vent some of my frustrations, but my interest in help in developing our country. As I recalled, I was with the AFC, and democracy was not working after the 2015 elections. It was very unfortunate that that part of the democracy was destroyed after March the 2nd of last year. And I thought I will never come back here to live after 5 months of struggle. And I want to say this, that our vice chairman and all the rest, they stood up with a strong fight, and with the international world witness how an election was about to be cheated into the hands of the coalition. With all that in mind, and what I have seen today, we have come a long way for the last 10 months. And I'm hoping that that 5 months that we have experienced is an eye-opener for any political party in this country to come, that our democracy must be flourished and must be respected. We should not deviate from our constitutional rights and our obligations to this nation. And this is one of the undertakings, as long as I'm here, that I want to see democracy flourish. And I will work my soul out to see that the people of Guyana, especially the underprivileged people, elevate themselves to a higher standard of living in Guyana.
Thank you. Dr. Rose?
I got the message here. This is not a question, I have a question, but it is a message. Someone told me, it's a she. He says, if you go to any hospital and the quarantine with a gun boy, you can rest assured you'll be going 6 feet into the soil. This is a song written by Juan Talisha something back, but of course we call that. Now, I want to ask both of you this. In terms of education, quickly, lots of young people in Borbies in the quarantine are passing CXC examinations, 6 subjects, 8 out of 10, and so forth, and with very good grades. But they're not getting no jobs. These people have to go and work in stores for 8 to 10 dollars a week, and they're not having a chance to say, well, put their experience or their knowledge into practice. What can be done to help these people? I was made to understand that there are lots of vacancies in the teaching profession up to currently, and they're not being filled because of some stalling somewhere. Mr. Morgan, what have you to say about this?
Yeah, there is indeed, Doc, you're right, that there is a high level of unemployment in the region. And even though we are putting out young people from the University of Guyana, both here at Tain and in Turkine, people are not, it's not easy to find jobs. And that's perhaps because we are not attracting any high level of investment, both foreign and local, which will create that level of employment. So we have to be able to create now within the region a climate where people will want to come and invest, and maybe give them incentives to come and invest so that we can create more jobs. It is also true what you said, that we still have quite some vacancies in the region to fill, and so those vacancies will shortly be advertised, and we will go through the system of interviewing these people, finding who is suitable, and then we will make the necessary recommendation to the Ministry of Public Service for them to be employed. That's the process by which people are being employed in the region.
Dr. Amaya, quickly.
Dr. Rose, yes, you're right, but you have to understand as well that this Region 6 is an agriculture region, and it's very difficult. But we need more of the type of business like the non-facades business, where people can be employed. So if we have foreign investors get into different types, because today people don't want to go into a rice field, they don't want to do cash crop, and so they send their children to school, and they don't want the children to be employed in the same category. But for them to have jobs, maybe they have to move to Georgetown. So we have a lot of stores, and you're right, they're working in stores and they have 8 and 10 subjects. But unless we become more creative in the more technical aspect, today is a computer age, and we don't have some of those things. And that is what I was saying, that everything is centralized in Georgetown. Maybe we could have bring down the agriculture ministry in Berbice. Everything that we want, and I campaigned for that for a long time. We must deploy now some of those ministries in different areas that we can create employment for people who finish university, who finish high school. And that is an incentive now. We have to look at clerical jobs, computer jobs, and so forth, but you will not find it in that aspect or that demand like what you find in Region 4. And we will have to work on that. And I know the diaspora now is, the government is trying to get people outside of Guyana to come and invest in the country. And with the oil now, I think resources are coming, and that should attract people to come to help Guyana to develop, to reach up to the standard of the outside world.
Mr. Amboka, any closing remarks as we come to the end of this short program?
Yes, I thank you very much, both Doc and Mr. Sugrim, for giving me the opportunity to explain some of the things that is happening within the region. It has been my pleasure to do that, as I always find it my duty to explain to people and to communicate to people what's happening in the region. So at any time that you would like to have me back to discuss what's happening in the region, you're free to give me a call, and I will be prepared to come back to discuss with some of the things that is happening in the region. So I thank you for this opportunity.
Dr. Amaya, quickly.
Yes, Dr. Rose, and to Mr. Sugrin. Let me say I thank both of you that last week you came to my birthday, and we had a nice time together. And again, as the chairman was saying, I am here whenever you need me. I am here, and continue the good work with Globespan, that we can send a message across to the world that Guyana is alive, Guyana is progressing, and we are asking people to come to be part among the development. Thank you.
Again, I apologize for not having Mr.
Adams.
Gerald Adams here, but you know, the show has to go on, so some other time we'll probably get him to come on the program. Charles, over to you.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, again, we want to thank you. And we want to talk about a farm to market road that is going through your region again. That will open up a lot of lands, but we don't have time now. And I just want to also ask you, as a chairman, can you reach out to investors to come to your region and give them incentive, or does it have to go through central government?
It has to go through central government because anything to do with incentives and so has to be tax breaks and these kinds of incentives. So that, of course, will have to be worked out by the central government.
I got you. Well, again, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you so much for being with us. Dr. Ramaya, thank you so much, Dr. Rose. And to all our audience out there, thank you for staying with us. To Noir Singh and to Devin, thank you so much. Until next week, God bless all of you, and may God bless our dear country of Guyana, and especially Region 6 with Regional Chairman, Mr. David Armagan, and of course, Coordinator, Dr. Ramaya. Thank you so much for being with us today.
And next week, we'll have the Minister of Agriculture here, hopefully, for him to tell us more about the floods and so forth. So once again, thank to both of you, but please stay on the show. Don't go off when we come up.